With Tennant now back to Doctor Who, as he will be playing the 14th Doctor for the 60th specials, I wanted to look back on my favourite Doctor Who episode and why I think it's the best. This of course is The Waters of Mars, the third out of 5 specials in David Tennant's final run as the 10th Doctor. The story picks up with the 10th Doctor wandering on Mars as he is captured by human colonists. Little does he know that it is the same day when they all die, and that it is a fixed point in human history. As he unravels the cause of their deaths and what happens that day, he is backed into a corner that mirrors the fires of Pompeii. However, the result is very different, with one of the darkest endings in Doctor Who history. This was the episode where the 10th Doctor finally snapped, with disastrous consequences that parallel Walter White's journey in Breaking Bad, particularly in the episode of Ozymandias, and in how the Water of Mars is the equivalent of Breaking Bad, with a man justifying his actions for the greater good, but deep down it is only for his pride and ego. So why do I like it? I will break down in why it is the best episode in 4 points: the story, themes, villains, and the Doctor himself. As previously mentioned, this is the darkest Doctor Who episode, with the focus being set on Mars as an outbreak within the water starts infecting the crew one by one. The story has all the classic Doctor Who tropes: an under siege story, characters being killed off one by one, a countdown, last minute rescues, and twist ending. What the episode does differently though is centering its focus on the mind of the Doctor and how he feels and how he, as a time traveller, has certain rules. With something like the fires of Pompeii, he had no choice but to let it happen, as the whole world was at stake, and in this conflict will save the world at the cost of the colonists' lives, as he does not want to interfere for the same mistake happening again. This goes in contrast with the fires of Pompeii, as it shows the Doctor breaking all his rules. I always liked Russell T Davies' era in presenting ideas with different outcomes. Midnight and Voyage of the Dam showed the worst and best of humanity working together in tough situations. Blink and Love and Monsters shows the positives and negatives in people's obsession with the Doctor. The fires of Pompeii and The Waters of Mars shows the laws of time being obeyed and disobeyed. The story represents change within its main character, like that of Breaking Bad, as both the 10th Doctor and Walter White are men running out of time and try to take back control in some meaningful way to themselves, even if their demise is certain. While Ozymandias and The Waters of Mars are different in their execution of deconstructing the fallen myth, both end with 2 broken men with the mistakes they've made and the lives they've ruined by not facing up to the consequences and running away from any responsibility. Both men know that for the rest of their lives, which is very little time they have left, as they both die 2 episodes later, are broken men that will die alone and can only try and make amends best they can. The themes of The Waters of Mars is that of sacrifice, chaos, and pride. The sacrifice at play here is the sacrifice of the crew members to venture into the unknown and sacrifice their lives to save the Earth. Sacrifice of Adelaide in defying the Doctor and taking her own life in attempts to keep the timeline intact, and most of all the sacrifice of the Doctor giving up everything he believes in because of his pride and ego. The sacrifice is very relatable in different aspects of the episode that gives us a multi-layered look at what people are willing to sacrifice for. The 10th Doctor, like Walter White, sacrifices everything good about their character just to get even with life. The chaos that erupts is nature itself, as the viral infection, known as the Flood, infects and destroys people's bodies, similar to how the cancer in Walter White destroys him, and that both viruses are unstoppable in beating, and sooner or later they will win, as the Doctor puts it. These infections are the cause of what sets everything in motion, both characters' character arcs. Finally, pride. The pride of Adelaide not wanting to be rescued for the good of humanity, in not wanting to change the future, and the pride she has for her daughter and granddaughter. Adelaide's pride is noble, which is in contrast to the Doctor's pride of wanting to be in charge and control, and wanting the glory of saving the day and being the man in charge. The Doctor and Walter White want the love and respect of everyone. Their pride is both their downfall in their respected episodes of Ozymandias and The Waters of Mars, with the deaths of Hank and Adelaide. These deaths show the consequences of both men's actions, and by the end of their final appearances, they are forced to swallow their pride and move on and be honest with themselves to save the lives of both Skylar and Wilf. The villain of the story is called the Flood, an ominous name that is more plural than singular, yet it is all from one entity that multiplies and spawns into other life forms as it infects new hosts. The Waters of Mars plays within its second act with the idea of the virus already infecting everyone, and it's still dormant in them, as it did with Maggie.
This thing is clever. It didn't affect the birds or the insects in the biodome, it chose the humans. You were chosen. And I told you, Adelaide, water can wait. Tarek changed straight away, but when Maggie was infected, it stayed hidden inside her. No doubt so it could infiltrate the central dome. Which means...
Any one of us could already be infected. We've all been drinking the same water.
And if you take that back to Earth... one drop...
This gives me vibes from The Thing as it plays on paranoia. The episode only vaguely hints on the idea, as I can understand with its runtime and everything else going on, and it was already done in midnight, but cool little touch to what is already a great episode. The Flood are a soulless entity, looking only to infect and destroy. These things are some of the most terrifying monsters ever put to Doctor Who, with their white eyes, silent demeanour, cracked lips, black teeth, and water dripping all over them. I want to give praise to the team behind The Flood, pulling off the best practical Doctor Who effects, as if you look behind the scenes, it was a tremendous challenge to get right, and was hard to pull off, and was so hard to pull off that they almost scrapped and rewrote the whole episode because they couldn't get it right.
Of course, the actor is standing there blinking madly. And you're just like, we're not going to be able to get a single take because it looks ridiculous. And I know that Russell was standing there thinking, this whole thing is going to have to be rewritten. And then happily Neil Gorton and his team, saved the day by designing a prosthetic that made it possible to not have water in eyes. Russell was able to stand there and simplify, so the water predominantly was coming out of the mouth rather than running across a whole head.
Also, more praise to the actors Alan Rusco, Joplin Sibtain, and Sharon Duncan Brewster, who played Andy, Tarak, and Maggie, and were in these prosthetics for most of the episode, and still give menacing performances as the Flood. They are like Michael Myers, a force of nature that can't be stopped, the episode being ambiguous to their whereabouts, as the Doctor hints at a war between the Ice Warriors and the Flood, which sounds like an awesome backstory. Speaking of forces of nature, I like to add that time is a villain in this film, but only as a metaphor. Like the Flood, they can't be stopped, as they destroy everything in their path. The time they have to the countdown till the base explodes, the time the Doctor has left as he knows he's going to die soon, but the time itself, with the event being a fixed point in time, that can't be changed, that the Doctor comes into conflict with the laws of his own people. The actual villain is the Doctor himself. Like Walter White, at the very beginning of both their stories, they begin as loved men, only to descend into darkness by their own ego, pride, anger, and frustration out on the world. Both men justify their actions through noble intentions, but deep down, it's for them and them alone, and they excuse their actions by what little time they have left, as in their eyes, time is, and always will be, their only enemy. The Flood is the villain, time is the actual villain, the Doctor is the real villain. Finally, the biggest aspect of the episode and the show itself, Tennant truly pushed Doctor Who to the peak of its popularity with his turn as the 10th Doctor, and nothing pushed his acting range as much as it did in The Waters of Mars. He can go from charming to serious to funny to evil at the turn of a hat, similar to how Bryan Cranston's range as Walter White could go from all of these emotions at once. As the episode begins, you believe he is sincere for telling of how sorry he is to the crew because he knows they are going to die, but the fact of the matter is, he isn't sincere because he wants to do the right thing and save them. He wants to save them because he wants to win. This is a man who has slowly lost everyone he has ever cared about over time and has become more lonely and angry because of it, like how Walter White loses everyone in his journey in becoming Heisenberg. Across the specials, you see the Doctor in the next Doctor still cheery but sad at the end, as he says he doesn't want to have any more companions because of the thought of losing them again, as he then reiterates in the Planet of the Dead, as he does it out of care for people and not wanting to get anyone else hurt. But in the Waters of Mars, it backfires, as he has no one to keep him in check, to control his ego and arrogance. He is angry at the laws of his own people that he obeys by because it is the right thing to do. However, it has always come at the cost of his own happiness, just how Walter White never stood up for himself and was always allowing himself to be pushed over. But for the 10th Doctor, he snaps with his anger at his people for cursing him, and he decides to declare himself Time Lord victorious and take charge as he sees fit. This also foreshadows their return within the next episode. He turns back at the wrong time, but he's confident in a chaotic element and in a small way enjoys it, just like Walter White, as they feel alive in a tense situation and are great at thinking on their feet. Ten wants to protect people and the baggage that comes with time travel, but at the same time there is an ego to him where he doesn't want to be criticised and told what to do, just like Walt's refusal to also accept Hal because of his pride and stubbornness, and the fact he never wanted to involve Skylar out of protecting her, but he didn't want her criticism and being told what to do. He's so arrogant about not being scared of time or the flood, because he knows that's not what's going to kill him because of the prophecy with the 4 knocks. We then of course get this cool moment.
Die with us.
No, because someone told me just recently, they said I was going to die. They said he will knock 4 times, and I think I know what that means, and it doesn't mean right here, right now. Because I don't hear anyone knocking, do you? 3 knocks is all you're getting. Water and electricity, bad mix.
His whole story reminds me of Macbeth and how he thinks he won't die with the prophecy.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
The heartbeat of a Time Lord.
I love Tennant's characterization, seeing ordinary people being excited and seeing new things, but as soon as anything bad happens, his darkness comes out and he'll get involved whether you like it or not, and he'll save you whether you like it or not as well. And he almost parallels with the Master, where he goes God mode, with the episode also foreshadowing his return. His actions by saving a few crew members' lives could have undone all of human history because he needed an ego boost, and shows just how lost he was without having a companion. He is so smug and arrogant at the end, to the point the audience wonders if who they are watching is still the good guy.
Are we the baddies?
This comes as Adelaide calls the Doctor out for his behaviour, just like how Mike calls Walt out. Both characters make a defiant stand against them.
This is wrong, Doctor. I don't care who you are. The Time Lord Victorious is wrong.
But no, you just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your ego. You just had to be the man. If you'd done your job, known your place, we'd all be fine right now.
This scene goes into further comparison to how the Doctor tells the Master in Season 3 that just because he can control everything, he still can't stop humans from thinking. And that is exactly what Adelaide does against the Doctor. How the deaths of Mike Ehrmantraut and Adelaide go, and the context is different, but both Walter White and the Doctor are shocked by what they have done, and yet still only make it about themselves.
Is this it?
I just realized that Lydia has names I can get him.
My death? Is it time?
I'm sorry, Mike. This whole thing could have been avoided.
Shut the fuck up. Let me die in peace.
Adelaide taking her own life is one of the darkest moments in the whole show, and was handled really well, the sacrifice of her life as a defiant stand against the Doctor to preserve the timeline. Both shows are different in their genre, but both shows are making the same point, with 2 men breaking down as life is always stacked against them. However, both endings are different, with the 10th Doctor having a bittersweet ending to his story with the dilemma of saving Wilf. If he doesn't save him, the Doctor is dead. At least, the idea of the Doctor is dead, and he becomes something darker. But if he does save Wilf, this version of the Doctor will die, but the idea of the Doctor will still live on, and he will be redeemed. This is something Walter White could never do, as he died forgotten about and despised, despite him saving and providing for his family, and the only thing that was ever remembered about him was his alter ego, the darker side, which was Heisenberg. And that's it, what I have to say on The Waters of Mars. While I do think Tennant's final 5 episodes were muddled in places, I think this was the best episode in terms of what it wanted to say and do, and I'm glad they did, as it gave us the best Doctor Who episode and one of my favourite TV episodes in history, and is the reason why Tennant is my favourite.
I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
And I'm gonna win! And I'm dead.
The song is ending. The story never ends.
I did it for me.
Lived too long.
I liked it. I was good at it. And I was really
was alive.
I don't want to go.
If you liked what you watched, please like, share and subscribe for more content.